What up, what up, what
What's up? What's up?
up? Hey, man. I'm excited this week. Friends, families, and hopefully future listeners, we're going to be talking about the importance of sports in society. We're going to kind of start off with the role that they played in our family.
Yeah, which was a very large portion. Growing
Yeah,
up, sports was just
I
kind
mean,
of everything.
even in today, right? So a lot of people are going on vacations, they're taking family vacations, and they're going and traveling all over the world. And people ask me what I want to do. And for me, all I really want to do is put a ball in front of me and I will go play any sport. I don't really care about going to sightsee or seeing traveling. It's all about just being active. And I think the importance of sports, just growing up being an athlete and just playing and having that competitive nature, has really still instilled that in me today, to where I don't have to go to these places to have some type of happiness inside me. It's like the sports are just what makes me happy and content, and brings me fulfillment in life, actually.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way in the sense I'm not to the point where I don't like doing other things. Like I still like going hiking and I still like sightseeing. I think sightseeing is super cool because it's just I don't know. You see something in a picture and then you're like, ah, that's kind of cool. But then if you see it in real life, you're like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. But I think sports are kind of the main. I don't know. It's just what I like to do. It's grabs my attention the most. It's what I have the most fun doing. I feel like, even if it's not something that is necessarily a sport or a game, you just find little things to make it a game, like around the house or I don't know, just stuff like that.
Speaking of the games around the house, do you
Ball
remember?
tag.
When, yeah. So
Yeah.
our mom used to work two jobs. As you all probably know, our father was disabled, so my mom was kind of the provider for the family. She would work at the family prisoning business during the day, and then she would go out and work at a restaurant in the evenings. And my dad would go up there and spend time with her and essentially be the host, which was
Yeah, working the cash
probably,
register. Yeah.
yeah. His customer service was someone would walk in and he'd say, "How many?" They say two. He'd be like, "Smoking or non?" And then they'd
Yeah.
be like, "Non." And he'd be like, "Well, here you go. Here's the menu. Go find a table." Which most hosts would actually, take them and sit them down. And yeah.
I don't know. People seem to like that though. I don't know. I've never heard any complaints necessarily, but
Well, that's interesting because I think there are these certain restaurants now where you go in them and they actually like talk to you poorly, like they treat you
oh
like
yeah, it's
absolute
like
crap. And
Moe's or something.
oh, is I don't know the name of it. It's not a restaurant that I would ever support or anything like that. I think that's a terrible idea,
Yeah.
but people do that, and I think Dad probably could have been one of the superstars working there.
Yeah, I think so. That whole idea of walking in and them just being angry to you and it doesn't it's a little foreign to me, but
Yeah, I mean, so go. I guess we were eventually talking about. So our mom would go out to eat, and we would go essentially in the house, and we would play ball tag, which was
oh
essentially
yeah.
running around the house throwing Nerf balls. And I remember that there were a number of my mom's decorations that got broken, a number of presents that our other siblings had given to my mom that got broken, that ended up hurting them and making them cry because we accidentally broke them by throwing the ball. And that was just, it was just always wanting to be active. And I think
Mhm.
maybe it's not just sports. Like I do like sightseeing, and or I don't know if I like sightseeing, to tell you the truth. Like
Yeah.
if I can go to have an Oculus headset and go see Niagara Falls and the Grand Canyon, like that's enough for me. So
Oh, okay.
X out on the sightseeing. I don't need to see that. But about being active, like I would much rather go on a roller coaster than I don't know, sit in an airplane or go on a helicopter ride with someone else driving. I like being
Yeah.
in control, and I like being able to experience things, especially very, very quickly.
Yeah. I think circling back on the whole ball tag thing, it was kind of the perfect storm. It was that and we'll get into the racing around the house a little bit later, but It was the perfect storm because there were so many of us in the house. No parents were home, but the house was set up to it was a circle, so it was perfect for I'm running this way, so this person's going to chase me, or are they going to fake me out and go the other way, and you're going to run into them, and they're just going to tag you with the ball. So there was a lot of strategy involved. So it was actually a lot. It was a lot of fun just because of the circular aspect of it.
That's true. And one of the key points that it was is that it wasn't just tag, is that you would try to throw the ball so it would hit off the person you were getting in such a way to where they would get stuck or go down the stairs somewhere. So they would have to then go run and chase it down before they
Yeah.
could pick it up, which would give you enough time to then go hide somewhere in the house to make it even more
Yeah.
difficult for them to find you. So that
Yeah.
was the secret sauce into how to be a good ball tag player
Mhm.
is throw it in a way. Or sometimes if someone was chasing you, you would just turn around and let them throw it, pick it
And
up,
yeah,
and then they
yeah.
run, and then you
Try to
get
catch
right
it.
back at them, and then you take off.
Yeah.
So it was just like go, go, stop, 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 go, 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 go,
Mhm.
stop, stop. You know what I mean?
It was a lot like dodgeball in the sense like, okay, I'm going to try to get as close to you as possible so you can't chuck it at me so I have as much as a chance as possible to catch it, and then I'm just going to throw it back instantly and then run away.
Right. And then you also have to throw in the mist that it wasn't just us 6 kids running around, but we also had
Oh
dogs that
yeah.
were chasing us, and they would be going barking, going wild and stuff like that. So that also kind of ruined the hiding aspect to where
Yeah.
they'd be, just sitting there right next to you, be like, Panda, get out of here. Be like, go, go, go,
Yeah.
go.
You'd give away your hiding spot a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing, it's not really necessarily a sport, but since our dad was disabled, he had those motor scooters that you see around sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And us 6 kids would take that scooter and we would have a stopwatch and we would time each other to see who could get the fastest lap throughout the house. And sometimes we'd be scraping the scooter into the drywall on the side, so it's like scraping against the walls. And mom would come home, she'd be like, "Oh, what the hell? Who did this?" It's like, "Oh, I don't know.
And then
Must have been dad."
she's like, Monty, you got to be more careful driving around the house. Come on, Monty. And we would all be over there just, be like,
Yeah.
oh, I wonder who did that.
He's like,
Yeah,
"Oh, it's those
Dad."
damn kids."
And then he would get home and he'd see that the battery on the scooter,
It's almost
the
dead. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think the main focal point of this episode was how sports affected us personally and how it translates to life, because sports is one thing that it's a game and it's fun, but there's a lot to be learned from it. And a lot of the time, especially early in life when you're at your most developmental place, which is where a lot of people start playing sports, it takes a big impact on how you are in your day-to-day life as well.
Yeah, and I as I went through the notes and everything that we wanted to talk about, I found it really difficult to try to figure out, like, where do you start with
Yeah.
that, because sports encompass so many different aspects of what makes essentially a good person or someone who has the ability to be successful in terms of work ethic, in terms of commitment, in terms of communication, teamwork, focus. And it's just like when you think about playing all these different sports too versus just specifically playing one sport, so being a well-rounded athlete, it also just helps you be a well-rounded person, I guess I would say.
Yeah. I would say the biggest thing for me is just kind of learning the things in every sport individually, like learning the intricacies of baseball or basketball, but kind of just being a sponge and absorbing knowledge, whether maybe sometimes the coach was not necessarily qualified, but you'd still have to listen to them and respect their opinion, whether you saw it as right or wrong or whatnot. But you just have to sit there and be a sponge and just absorb knowledge, and even if it wasn't correct, learn how to pick the things that were correct out of that and apply them to this, that, or the other thing.
Yeah, that's true. Is that you might be onto what the greatest aspect of sports are is your ability to learn, learning quickly, learning under pressure, and developing all those skills because you have to learn all those other communication skills, teamwork skills, honesty, work ethic. You have to learn all those things, and that's what sports does a great job of being able to teach you, right? To
Hmm.
be able to learn those things.
Yeah. I guess what would you say if there was one single quality that sports taught you and that you've taken throughout your life, and sometimes when a situation comes up, you kind of look back at it and you learned this from sports. If there was one quality in particular that stands out to you, do you have any?
Oh man, there's just so many. I would say the one quality that sports has probably developed in my personality the most. And I think I would like to get into a future episode where we do dive into personalities.
Hmm.
And I don't know if our personalities develop how we go about like how sports affects us, or if it's the actual things that we do, like sports, religion, politics, and those things that actually create our personalities. But for me, I know it's it's that perfectionist mentality, which goes into wanting to have a very, very strong work ethic, but also putting a lot of pressure on myself to be the best that I can possibly be. Like it's and I'm not saying this is a good thing,
Hmm.
but I strive to be the best at absolutely everything I possibly can be, to the where I'll like see what other people are doing wrong and how I can improve, and just no matter what it is in life. So
Yeah.
I would say that's the biggest thing for me.
Okay. I would say for me, probably the ability to work with a team and communicate is probably one of the biggest things that I've learned because, like, for me, growing up, it was, I mean, I had a couple of friends my own age and whatnot, but a lot of the time, I'm the youngest sibling, so I was around a bunch of older kids playing sports all the time. So I had to kind of learn when to when to have the ability to learn and when to like speak up and be like, okay, hey, come on. But just being around older siblings, I would say playing sports and being around a bunch of people my own age and how learning how to be a leader and learning how to work with teammates and not discourage them because I'm so used to playing sports with all of you guys, which are a lot older than me, and being able to be like, oh, hey, it's okay. Like, you're not going to win every time, or just being able to encourage the people that maybe aren't doing so well. And it's, it's underestimated how much just words of encouragement and just giving somebody that confidence can change how they play or how they act or just how they go through life. Because, like, say they're not doing so well, but if you start yelling at them, that's not going to make them play any better, you know?
No, and it's going to affect their emotional. I don't even know what the best term for it is, where they currently are,
Yeah.
like their feelings, their energy, and maybe emotional energy. Like if you're just 100% yelling at somebody or getting on somebody, like their ability to do well in the rest of that game or anything like that has really drastically decreased.
Yeah.
Like you can't put someone down that much. Or I've seen parents yelling at their kids or making them cry to the point, and it's like after that happens in a game, you can just about forget about any type of success happening after that point. And then not only that, but even in the future, like there's a layer of trust and embarrassment that happens
Hmm.
through there that just you've just knocked all confidence down.
Yeah. And then another thing that I was thinking about throughout the week was, I guess, something that I've never really thought about, but kind of like, as I was saying, being around a bunch of older kids and playing sports with them. And I guess maybe that's kind of why I was always, I don't know, in my friend groups growing up, I was always kind of the mature, quote unquote, one. I was trying to be the mature one, the one that people kind of look at when they're not sure if something's right or wrong, or I don't know, it kind of I looked back at it and I was like, man, I was always kind of seeking the approval of all the older people. And I always thought like people would look at me and be like, oh, look at him. He's so mature. He's doing so well. But it's like, I never really, I did, but sports were the kind of time where I could step back and just be a kid and play rather than going out in social situations with my friends and I don't know, being embarrassed that we were kids, I guess, even though that's just exactly what we were was kids, if that makes any sense.
I guess help me understand that a little bit deeper. Like going out in public and being kids. Do you have an example of what that looked like?
I don't know, like in high school, I remember a lot like my friends and I would go out to eat and they would be sitting there goofing off laughing or telling stupid jokes and I would always I would laugh at their jokes obviously, but I don't know, whenever they started doing like stupid stuff and just being like a stupid teenager, I would kind of try to be the more mature one. And I guess there's pros and cons to that, but I guess sometimes I wasn't this necessarily the social butterfly that I wished I was. But
Yeah, uh, you know that's something I wonder with sports is that it's our one way of I think determining obviously no, if you grow up in a religious setting or something like that it's going to be a different set of rules but the structure of rules in a sport is what's creating right and wrong
mhm,
so in basketball a foul is this and this so everything below that is not a foul but everything after that is a foul and so you're going to get punished and so I think sometimes it's that structure in sports that kind of structure you as a person in terms of what you're talking about like do you get what I'm saying with that?
yeah, I guess so. Like it's just saying kind of the better ability to determine what's right and wrong in social situations or because of sports, I guess, is what you're saying, right?
Well, right, yeah, and it's the ability to follow rules,
Yeah.
directions, manners, to have those things. Again, I think I talked about last week is that sports, if you break it down to its most essential function, it's the ability to make the fewest amount of mistakes, but also
Hmm.
perform at the highest level possible. And that's how one wins
Right.
by making less mistakes than the other team did. And then when there is that opportunity to perform at the highest level, taking advantage of those opportunities.
Right. And then sometimes, even when you feel like you're playing to your fullest potential, sometimes it feels like everything's just going wrong. And I think at moments like that where it's so hard to accept, like, hey, they're just the better team that played better than us today, or maybe they were just having like an awesome day and we were just a little bit off and we just don't see the mistakes they were making to take advantage of. But I feel like even times like those can be very demotivating sometimes.
Yeah, or I know even from like a baseball or a golf perspective, if once you start throwing in the wind, especially with golf, like just trying to play in strong wind conditions, hitting into the wind, and man, what that can do to you mentally is just so mentally draining.
Hmm.
And I think going from rules then to focus, right? So I think sports is the one aspect where you have to be focused almost the entire span of from the beginning to the end of the game. And I think baseball is I was thinking about this week. Baseball is the one probably exception
Yeah.
to where you can get away with not being focused. And I remember, dude, that's why sometimes the outfield was so
Oh,
difficult
yeah.
because you would just be standing out there and standing out there. But you have to be focused. You always have to be ready because it's that time where you're not focused and that ball goes over your head and you're just like, oh crap.
Yeah.
And like it's like and then you're running back there and like, man, how many people were on base? Where were they at? Like, where should I be throwing this
Yeah.
ball? Because my back is now running back and I don't have time to turn around and look and be like,
Yeah.
it's just and I think sometimes it's just so mentally taxing being out there. But I know for me in the workplace, when it comes to that 8 hours of work, it's trying to have that mental toughness and focus to not look over at the phone or not look over
Mm-hmm.
at the distractions that are out there. And I think that's one huge thing that sports plays in life is the ability to focus 100% on the task at hand.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to add on to the whole baseball aspect and not having to be focused 100% of the time, but I feel since I played the infield, I played shortstop and third base mainly, and then I pitched a little bit. Pitching was you have to be dialed in. You have to be focused 100% of the time when you're pitching. At least if your team's up to bat or whatever, you can think about whatever you want. But even then, in the middle of innings, you still have to be dialed in and focused, or else you lose that and kind of get out of flow state, and it just messes with the whole thing. But other than pitching, I feel at shortstop sometimes you have your pre-pitch little motion, like take a couple steps forward, do this, do that, your rhythms that you'd get into. And sometimes I feel like I would be in those and then I could basically just think about whatever I wanted to think about and then let my muscle memory kick in from there. So basically if somebody hit a ground ball at me, I could be thinking about whatever, but I'm still paying attention, but I'm not 100% focused on it. If somebody hits a
But
ground ball to my right side, then I'm already on it over there, but yeah.
what about, were there times where you made errors? Would you say the majority of the times that you made errors, you would pinpoint those to your mental focus being a little bit gone previous to that ball being hit?
Yeah, I would say potentially.
Okay.
I don't know if I would attribute most of them, but I would say, yeah, I guess I don't know. I guess I never really thought about what I was thinking about before the pitch and if that was the reason for my error, but I didn't make
Okay.
errors, so it doesn't really affect me, I
Oh,
guess.
oh yeah. Oh, okay. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I forgot about that, Monty.
Yeah.
Uh, but you were bringing up pitching, and I think anytime the ball is in your hand, you're going to be more focused. And
Hmm.
that's why I think it takes so much more effort to when the ball's not on your hand to be able to have that focus. Because again, you're talking about you're growing up, elementary school, your mom and dad are over there. You want to impress them, or high school. There's girls over there. Maybe you want to impress them, or your friends,
Hmm.
or I don't know how you ever felt, but sometimes I had a lot of anxiety to where I didn't want to mess up because maybe I was trying out for another team. And it's that anxiety that starts ruining your focus because you're so worried about not screwing up or trying to be your best instead of just like being out there and being in the moment and doing what you know how to do that can really overcome your focus.
Yeah, I get that too. And it feels like the moments where you're the most anxious and the most where you want to like show off to your family or your friends or whoever's in the stands, it seems like that's the time where most of your errors come because it seems like if you're like, oh man, that sun is right in my face. I hope a ball doesn't come my way. A ball is almost certainly coming your way. Have you ever noticed that?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like,
Yeah.
man, it's super hard to see, or the
Yeah.
umpire's in my way right now. Hey, like,
Hmm.
and it's like, oh, I should have asked him. And it's like, oh, crap. I just heard it. Oh, here it
Yeah.
comes. Like, oh, crap.
Yeah. It seems like
Dang.
almost every single time.
And so I think you bring up another good point, specifically like with an up and away, is sports creates the opportunity to stand up for yourself, and I think create boundaries to where
Hmm.
if there's a setting where it's not optimum right there and you have the chance to change it, instead of just saying, oh well, hopefully the ball's not going to come, or oh it's
Yeah, yeah.
okay, like, no, hey, blue, I can't see, like, hey, can you get out of the way? Like, it creates men, it creates people who kind of can learn to stand up for themselves, or maybe it's against the other team where somebody did something to one of your teammates, or
Hmm.
whatever it might be. But also, I think one of the things I didn't do a great job of, I think I was a little bit insecure as a kid, maybe shy, is when maybe I wasn't doing well for a team or something like that, is not having better communication with my coach, which I think if I had kids now, I would be reaching out to them to be able to communicate more effectively, to ask more questions to the coach, like, hey, how can I do better, instead of just hoping that the coach would reach out to me. And I think that's a really valuable skill that I missed out on at a young age, was being able to communicate properly back and forth, and maybe because I really wanted to be good, but I was too scared to ask.
Right.
And I think a lot of times people in the workforce still have those types of issues. It's like, I would like to be able to do this, but I don't really want to ask, or I don't really know how to do it. So they just kind of sit in their normal day-to-day job and they go through the motions, but then they're never promoted because nobody ever realizes that they actually want to progress and they would put
Hmm.
in the work, when in fact they're just shy or afraid to go pursue it, or stand up and ask the difficult questions.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely a big part of it. And sometimes it's not even necessarily that it's such a complex thing that they're curious about, but sometimes you just don't want to ask somebody and have that person be like, "Are you serious? You don't know the answer?" And so I feel that just makes people shy away a lot of the time. And like you were saying, I feel like the player coach relationship is super important, because if you feel comfortable enough with your coach, then that kind of opens the door to talk about, hey, what can I improve on? Or what can I do differently? Or, hey, what are we working on in practice? So I can kind of wrap my head around it beforehand. Whereas if your player coach relationship isn't that great and you ask questions and I don't know, the relationship just kind of feels like they don't want you asking questions. So then in turn, you just stop asking questions. And then that really doesn't benefit you, the team, the coach, anybody.
Right. And I would say this is, if you look at most of the really good dynasty teams, they always had a really good coach, a really
Hmm.
good leader. And I think, even though as much as I really wanted to work on my player coach communication, is that a lot of it relies on the coach's ability, especially when you're dealing with little kids. Like, he's got to be personable, he's
Yeah.
got to be able to talk. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of dads out there in this day and age who are just willing to put in the time and effort. And so sometimes it's left to people who just don't have very good communication skills, or they're just doing it because their kid plays and they don't really know how to teach the sport, number one, so they're trying to do their best at that, and two, they don't have really good communication skills to be able to learn why little Johnny always seems to be shy, and just to talk to him and
Hmm.
kind of get him excited about playing sports. You know what I mean? Like, that's where
Yeah.
I came up with my nickname was Chabs, because one of my coaches, they would always ask my name and I would say Chabs, because I was so shy. I would say everything so fast. Chabs. It's like, oh, so that's how I got my name, Chabs. And then it was like fun. It was because this coach actually cared enough to give
Give
me a
you a little
nickname.
nickname. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like there was fun. Like, they made a priority to reach out to each one of the guys on the team, versus it was just kind of like hitting balls into practice. We all come in a group, and that's it. It was the very first time I'd ever really had one-on-one time, I think, with a coach that wasn't my dad, who
Hmm.
really seemed to want to get to know me. And man, that was really special.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot to dig into there, but even just the coach giving you a nickname, it's not understood how much when the coach says it, I feel like he doesn't understand how much it means to the kid. It's like even if it's just some like stupid little silly nickname, it's like, "Oh, whoa, I got a nickname now." And the kid feels cool about it, and then he starts calling himself the nickname and whatnot, and it kind of boosts his morale. And I feel in life that translates to I don't know, when you just walk by somebody on the street or at the grocery store and you say, "Oh, hey, hello," and like mom would always say hello to literally everybody at the grocery store. And you don't realize what saying hello or just sitting down and having a 10-second conversation with somebody actually means. But sometimes it's those moments that are the most important in that person's day. And somebody goes home and they're like, "Oh, hey, this kind of made my day today, and I'm happy about it." And it changes the whole aspect or the whole view of the entire day.
Now, I will say this: when it is a positive nickname where it seems to be encouraging and stuff like that, you're 100% right. It
Yeah.
makes you feel good.
Yeah.
But in high school, I had a kid that played baseball, and he wore Levi's to practice a couple of times. and the coach started calling him Levis, and and like he did not like it, and it was something that stuck. And then all the other kids started calling him that,
Oh no.
and then I mean, it just wasn't good. Like, it hurt his feelings. He was
Oh
not
yeah.
happy about it. It pissed him off, and so. When the nicknames are almost making fun of people, like, that just destroys people. So as much as what you're talking about, having a nickname uplift someone and
Mm-hmm.
encourage them and give them confidence, dude, those words and those nicknames, they can tear people down just as easily. And when it comes from the coach, the leader of the team, doing those things, that really causes division in the team, because like, this is destroying one of the players. Like, it doesn't matter if he's going to play or he's not. Once you start doing that and setting those parameters to where pretty much anything goes, and you can start talking about any of your players that way, or you start laughing at your team, like, that's
Mm-hmm.
the whole point of a team, is to have unity and to be strong and to be able to encourage each other and to support each other when they're down, and not to be the ones that cause that division or cause the ones to go down. Like, you don't make fun of half of your team while the other half of the team sits there and laughs. That
Yeah.
does not create unity.
Yeah. And I feel like it's one of the most important things that a coach can teach to a group of kids or high schoolers, or I guess they're still kids, but is to teach that it's bigger than, if the sport is baseball, it's bigger than baseball. Like, yes, we're playing baseball, we're on a team, we're trying to win, we're trying to go as far as we possibly can, but at the end of the day, it's bigger than baseball. We're all going to leave this baseball diamond, and then we're going to go home, and we're going to go on with our lives. And it's kind of how you interact with people and how you treat people, regardless of your expectations or regardless of the results. At the end of the day, it's bigger than baseball. And the most important thing is you and that person, not necessarily about baseball, but just how you impact them. And kind of generally what the podcast episode's about is the coach teaching the players how all of these things that sports teaches us, whether it be communication or whether it be discipline or competitiveness, and how to take that and apply that to our lives. I feel like that's one of the coach's main jobs, or one of his main lessons, at least.
It is. It is the main job. It is the main lesson, but it's the one point that doesn't get stressed really enough. And
Mm-hmm.
what becomes the main point is the ability to win. It's not the ability, it's not the desire to develop. And, that's one thing that I still struggle with today. Like, I'm very new at playing pickleball. So I'll go down to the pickleball courts, and maybe I'll have a partner who's not that good. And so we'll go play against two people who are really good, and they just keep hitting it at that person. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, great. You guys are going to win. Like, okay, we're going to go sit down now, and then we're going to wait 30 minutes to go play a game. But it's like, when I'm playing a game and there's someone who's not as good on the other team, I'm going at the person who's good, or I'm working on shots. I'm doing things to get everybody better, because the whole point of sports is to get exercise and is to get better. And it's like, dude, we're not playing for any money.
Yeah, you're not in a tournament.
So it's like, what's the point? Like, why do you keep hitting it over there? Like, yeah, I get you
Yeah.
don't want to lose, but what does winning do for you? You're gonna go home and be like, hey babe, like, went home, went 10-0 on the pickleball course tonight. Like, yeah, I kicked some ass. Like, it's
Yeah.
is that really what the conversation goes like?
Yeah.
Or is it about, hey, I'm trying to get better, this is community, I'm going out now. Again, there are some times where I go out and play pickleball and we're playing on a court where winner stays. Well, yeah, that's a little bit different of a scenario, because this win actually means something. This win means that I get to play another game and another game and another game, instead of going over and sitting on the bench. Because in pickleball, if you lose a game, you got to go put your paddles back in the rack. And,
Yeah.
these pickleball courts down here are so busy, dude, where it could be a 45-minute wait.
Huh.
So the importance of that, winner stays, then okay, that's a little bit different, because it's about, okay, I'm going to get to have more action, I'm going to get to have more cardio and stuff like that. But no, getting back to what we were talking about is just the point of one, player development, mentality development. It's super important, and I think it gets missed a lot, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then to kind of add on to what you were saying, like even if it's just like an exhibition match and you're playing pickleball and you just keep smacking it at the guy that's not very good, at the end, I don't know, but it just kind of makes me feel dirty almost. Like that's not the whole idea of sportsmanship is kind of just do whatever you can to win, but don't go out of your way to ruin somebody else's experience, I guess, and just kind of play the game the way that it's meant to be played. And to me, that just feels like, I don't know, it just feels unsportsmanlike almost. Like at the end of the, if I was doing that over and over, it just kind of makes you feel dirty. And it's like even in baseball, like sometimes there will be a situation where the ball gets hit to you, the runner's running from second to third. The umpire can't really tell if you tagged the guy running by or not, and then he calls him out. But then sometimes you just got to be like, or if the umpire asks you, did you tag that guy? Sometimes you just got to be like, no. Because if, I don't know, in my opinion, I think I would say no regardless of what the situation is or how important that game is. Because it's like, I feel sportsmanship is kind of the main focal point on it, I guess. I don't
And
know.
when you say sportsmanship, you essentially meaning honesty, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
I wouldn't tell him, no, I didn't tag him if I actually tagged him. But I think being honest and true to yourself is important, to say the least, because I don't know. I would probably just think about the umpire asking me and be like, "Oh yeah, I tagged him," but I didn't really tag him, and that guy knows I didn't tag him. I know I didn't tag him. I don't know. It just kind of weigh on your conscience sometimes. I feel like.
In I would say at a very early age, I thought that success was having a lot of money or being popular or having power. And I've came to the true conclusion that success is being happy with the person that you are today, being
Mhm.
happy with your values, that being someone who can stand up for your values and realize that they're not going to bow down to things that are against their values or doing things that are opposed to your values. And being able to be happy with who you were today and your actions and your words, and just what you do and your thoughts is the true meaning of success.
Yeah, and I guess where I was coming from with that is I remember there was one game we were playing fall ball, baseball in the fall season or whatever, and it was a game that really didn't even matter. And there was a ball hit to me at shortstop. The guy was running from second to third, like I said, and I didn't tag him. I might have like nicked his jersey or something, and then I threw to first, and it was called a double play. But then the guy on third was arguing like, "No, he didn't touch me. He didn't touch me." So the umpire comes over and asks me, and I was like, "No, I didn't touch him." But then everybody like kind of started clapping and cheering like it was something that was so spectacular and honorable. But it's like if that were me as the runner, I would expect him to be of that same mindset, you know? But like at the end of the game, the coach was like, "Oh, that was so awesome how you did that," and our coaches were like, "Oh, that was so awesome." But I didn't really think much of it because it was just kind of like, in my eyes, that was kind of what's expected.
What's right?
Yeah, yeah.
No, I know. So there's one instance that I remember, and it's almost like it's I don't even like it. So do you remember when me and you were golfing against the two owners of Savory?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Out at
so
Cedar
this
Lake.
yes,
Yeah.
so this is what happened is that I was in my 20s. Jake was like 7 years old, and we
Yeah.
would play golf all the time. And I got to the point where I was pretty good, but my one struggle was I'd hit the ball all over the place off
Hmm.
the tee. Now I would hit it extremely far, and when it went really far and straight, it would be really good. But Jake would always hit the ball super straight, and so at 7 years old, people would let him play at the from the ladies' tees, and so I we would go play people for money because I like to gamble on the golf course.
Yeah.
And so the two bosses of the restaurant that I used to work at wanted to play us, and we played them for $100 each. So I was going to be putting up essentially $200, and me and Jake ended up winning by I don't know. There was at least I think three holes left, and they were pretty. They had already pulling the money out of their pockets. And I just felt so guilty because I had assumed that they were going to be so terrible that we were just going to mop the floor with them,
Yeah.
which ended up being the case. Um, and so I just felt bad. And so then the next time we went out and I played with somebody else. They gave me somebody else to play with versus Jake, and I had to give them strokes. and they ended up beating me, and they made me pay the money, and I was like,
Oh, you
why?
didn't make
Why
them
would
pay?
what?
You didn't make them pay when we won?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I know. I
yeah.
felt bad. Yeah, I was like, and that was the problem is that I love gambling, but whenever I won, like I felt bad, like just
Yeah.
taking people's money,
Especially
which
because they were probably in the mindset that's like, oh, this kid's like 7 years old. I mean, how good can he be? But I mean, when you put a drive in the fairway and we're playing a scramble, and then you can just kind of take over from there, and then I'll help with a putt or a chip or something, it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of unfair when they didn't realize that we went out and played 72 holes every day on the weekends.
yeah. Well, and that was the thing when we were at work. I don't know for like a month straight. They're like, "Oh yeah, Chad thinks him and his little 7-year-old brother are gonna go out and beat us. Yeah, you must think we really suck." Blah blah blah. And I had to hear that for the whole month.
Yeah.
And then Dad, he would go in there because that's where my mom worked, and he'd be like, "Dude, I don't know, guys. Like, I don't think you really want to do that. Like, I don't wouldn't bet.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bet them. Like, don't bet Chad and Jake. Like, I don't think you're gonna be happy. Like, unless you like losing money." And that's exactly what happened. Is that me and 7-year-old Jake went out and smoked him, and then we actually played in that father son golf outing out at
Island Hills?
Island Hills,
Yeah.
where we went out and we won the whole thing too.
Yeah.
And we got absolutely zero, like no trophies, no
Mm-hmm.
nothing. I was
Yeah.
so ticked off about that, dude.
not even like
I
a
was
not even like
so
a
frustrated.
celebratory towel or anything like that.
Yeah, it was just like, great job, guys, good job. It's like,
See
are
you
you
next year.
serious?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just paid for this, and there were some good teams out there that we
Yeah.
beat. Like, I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
But
There's
that going back on just like sometimes when you know you're just gonna it's just not gonna be enjoyable. It's like try to make it as enjoyable as you possibly can instead of just like absolutely taking advantage of people.
yeah. And I feel like you and I teamed up a lot against whether it was your friends or whether it was your bosses. Like we went and we went bold against Jason and Josh, and I don't remember. We probably gambled that time too, huh?
We
When we
did.
went bowling. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, he's just a little kid. How good can he be?" But we seemed like we just kind of did that a lot, huh? Because we
Well, I
would get
mean,
invested with a sport. Like if it was bowling, you'd watch a video or you'd watch somebody bowl or something, and then you'd be like, "I kind of like bowling." And then we'd go bowl one time, and we're like, "Hey, we kind of like bowling." So we'd go every Sunday when it was like what $1 a game or something, and we just bowl for 2-3 hours, and, and then we just
yeah.
bowl every week and get good at it, and then
Well, that's the thing is that we obsessed over sports. Like I would obsess over videos. I would learn how to do it properly, and then I would try to teach you.
yeah.
And then again, we would go get professional equipment. We would get
Hmm.
our own bowling balls. We'd get things drilled to our specific hands so that they fit us properly. And that's a huge key when it comes to golf, sports. And I'll say this, even as business professionals, your tools are really important. I mean, Jake, you're in a position right now where you got to have good tools, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And for me, if it's sales training, having have good tools, good equipment is really really important to be able to win or be successful at life. But yeah, that's what it was. Is that I mean, I had 3 bowling balls, you had a bowling ball, and we would just put in the time and the effort, and we would just go. But it was fun. It
Yeah.
was fun. I mean, also we grew up in a small town of 11,000 people, so it's not like there was really anything else to go do
Yeah.
on a Sunday, like other than like play video games. You know what I mean? It was like,
Yeah.
okay, so we're going to take advantage of the dollar games and we're going to go bowl.
Yeah.
But we got so good that like we didn't really get beat. I mean, I think the one game that we bowled against Josh and Jason, I think I ended up having 10 strikes. I think I had a spare in the 8th, and then everything else was strikes. Like I think I shot like a 279.
Yeah. And I mean, when we get focused, like hyper focused on sports like that, we get pretty good. Like for just casual players who just picked up bowling that year or something. I don't know if you bowled when you were younger, but for me that
Yeah, I
was like,
did.
oh, okay. For me that
Yeah.
was like the first time where I like actually bowled other than going to like a party or something and playing a game or two. But it's like they showed up with their, I don't remember if they had bowling balls or not, but they bowl with the house balls, and we show up with You had 3 balls, I had one, and then we just show up and we whoop them. They're just like, dude, what the hell? This wasn't any fun for them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, you were a little kid. You had your own bowling ball, your own bowling shoes,
Hmm.
and right, like you started off I think the first time. I don't know if you even got like 40, and then by the end, I think your highest game was probably close to like a 150 or
I think it
something.
was 170.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
a 171 or something like that.
And that was with I think an 8 pound ball, which doesn't very much. So in bowling, they're called revs and speed to be able to knock down the pin. So it's really difficult, I would say, for an 8-year-old to bowl that high of a game unless he's super accurate, because the ability just for the pins to fall down with that type of a ball isn't very easy.
Yeah. And like you said, being a perfectionist just in any walk of life, I feel like you rubbed off on me in that sense where when we would go out on the weekends and bowl, it would be it would be for fun, but we would be learning the entire time, or I would be learning the entire time. Like you'd say, "Oh, stand on this arrow when you're going down the lane. What do you want to be thinking about? Oh, you want to be thinking about how much spin you want to put on the ball, but you also want to be thinking about which arrow am I aiming at? You're not necessarily looking at the pins. You're looking at where you want to roll the ball on the arrows closer to you, so that way you're more accurate. And it's just improving on something that you weren't necessarily trying to compete in, but just it's every activity to me is more fun when you're good at it. If you're not good at it, it's not a whole lot of fun, but then when you're improving, you can see yourself improving, and that's kind of the fun part to me, I guess.
No, I agree, and I think that's anyway with life. As we progress in life, as we reach our goals, part of the enjoyment is to go back and look at the memories of where you started to see that progression, and to see where you came from and then where you went. Like that's what's special when sometimes you see some of these athletes who came from absolutely nothing, or some of these very successful business people who came from nothing. It's it's the ability to be able to see where they came from and that process of how hard they worked that is really what's special, and not so much just the end result.
Yeah, and I think even more so when you see someone who was maybe naturally athletic and you see them doing well however many years later. I think it's a lot more commendable to see somebody who a couple of years ago you'd look at him and be like, "Oh, that kid is very clunky and unathletic," and then fast forward a couple of years, you see him being more athletic. He knows the game. His game sense is a lot better. His athletic ability just in general, like you can definitely tell the way that they present themselves and the way they move around on the court or on the field or whatever it is, you can tell they're improving. And I feel like it's almost more enjoyable to see that than to see somebody thrive when they're naturally gifted, I guess, for me.
Yeah, I agree with that, because you've seen the progression of, like, dude, this kid, he worked his ass off, he did that, and now he's gotten here. Like, that's
Yeah.
quite impressive to be able to do that. And when you're talking about somebody who's naturally talented, one thing that I think is very, very special about sports is that athletic ability is one thing in life that can't be faked. People can seem to be nice in public, they can seem to have a lot of money, you can pretend a lot of things,
Yeah.
but it's easy to talk a game whether you're at a bar or wherever you are. Oh yeah, I did this and I did that and I have a Ferrari, or to what looks like I have really nice clothes, and you never really know what goes on at home. But if someone says that they're good at sports, they're going to have to go play that sport one time, and they're going to have to prove it. And
Yeah.
that's one thing that I've always just really respected with sports and athletes, is that you can't pretend. There's no pretending in sports to be good at something. Like, someone could say that they own a business or that they do this, and it's like, yeah, but how successful is that business? And sometimes it takes a really long time to actually see if they were or they weren't, or who they were as a person. Like, oh, that's a really kind person. It's like, well, they gave a lot of money, but they stole a lot of money from or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh, they seem like they have a lot of friends, but they also treat people like crap. Like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like with sports, it's an instant reality check to where you could be talking yourself up like you're freaking Tiger Woods or something, and then your friend asks you to go out and play one time, and you shoot 110, and you're like, "Oh, it was just a bad day. It was just a bad day." It's like if you're that good, you're not gonna have a bad day where you shoot 30 over par. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
Like you can have off days, but in general, the muscle memory, the athletic ability, it doesn't go away regardless of how long you go away from that sport. Like for me, we played golf. Like I said earlier, when I was little, you would pick me up. I don't know if you picked me up from school, but mom and dad would go pick me up from school. We'd go out to the printing business. You would pick me up from the printing business. We would go out to the golf course and play until we couldn't play anymore. And then on the weekends, we would go out and play literally 72 holes. We'd go get donuts in the morning or something, and then we'd go out and play 72 holes. And we got pretty good at it. And then I took a break until about, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago. And Josh and Isaac were out golfing, and they were talking about how much fun it was. And I was like, oh, wow, I really liked golfing. Maybe I would have a good time. And I went out there, and I think I beat them both the first time after being away for like 7 or 8 years or something. And it's just kind of like the ability doesn't go away.
No, I mean it's just like riding a bike.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to be as good as you were at one point in time, but you're going to go. You'll get into it after a few rounds. You know, you'll continue to develop, and develop. But yeah, it comes back quite easily and quickly, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And then another thing is I didn't realize how much that I missed playing sports until all day baseball this year, which is exactly what it sounds like. They just play pickup games pretty much all day long from 10 to 10. And I went out there and I wasn't really sure what to expect. Like, I think I went out at noon or something because I wasn't sure if people were going to be there at the 10 o'clock game. So I went out at noon. But then when I got there, it was like, holy crap, I forgot how much I missed playing. And I went out and had a blast. And I came home and I think I was taking a nap on the couch. And I kept waking up like I was catching a ball or something in my sleep. And I kept like waking myself up. And I don't know. It was just all I could think about for the next however many days.
Would you say when you fall asleep, do you dream a lot?
Yeah, I think that I do. Sometimes I don't remember them, but I feel like I dream pretty much all the time.
And are they usually dreaming about something that you had just previously done?
Um, Not necessarily for baseball. That yeah, I think I was dreaming about baseball for like the next week or so after that. But yeah, I
Okay.
don't think normally it is.
Because I remember when I used to, like, if I worked at the restaurant and whenever I would take a nap after like a long, grueling day of work, like
Hmm.
just serving people, hosting all this stuff, dude, it would just be absolute nightmares. It wasn't dreams. It was nightmares about,
Yeah,
oh, this table needs this, and it was like I would just worked, and it was like I was working in my
you're
dream, and
working
it was just
again.
yeah, it was just as exhausting, and I would
Yeah.
wake up like just breathing heavy, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's like it was oh dude I that's how it was. And where else was that? Another stressful job, I think, at Kendrick's, like doing deliveries and stuff like that, trying to get all the deliveries done right in a timely manner. And it was just super stressful dreams whenever I would fall asleep right after work taking a nap. It was, oh, that was terrible.
Yeah. And I feel like kind of a takeaway from that is even though you had those stressful jobs, and I feel like we always did the best to kind of cherry pick the good situations out of maybe the not so good situations. And I feel like with sports, it's kind of the same way. It's like you could be down by 10 runs or whatever, but if you're still, if you're still having fun and laughing and not to the point where it's like you don't care anymore, but you still have to have a good time with it. Like if you're losing, there's no sense in being down about it and down on yourself and down on your teammates because that just ruins the rest of your day, the rest of your week, whatever. But I mean, if you can still have a good time about it, even some of my best memories are just out there, not even necessarily playing, but just the moments that I have with teammates. Like I remember one time basketball in high school with the Pattersons. I think it was freshman year or something like that. And I don't know, basketball just wasn't for me. I liked playing basketball, but I didn't understand like the whole I liked playing pickup basketball, but once it got to a competitive aspect where you start putting plays in and you have to play this zone, this you have to play man to man, you have to play at 1-3-1, whatnot. I never understood why you were playing that, and I guess maybe that's on me because I never asked like why are we doing this instead of this, or but I don't know. Basketball just was not for me. So I was sitting there on the bench with the Pattersons, and the coach got mad for some play or something, and he threw his marker straight on the ground as hard as he could, and the marker went and shattered all over the court, and they had to stop the game, and I'm just sitting there dying laughing with the Pattersons, and it's just like, I still think about that a lot. Like, that's one of my favorite memories playing basketball, and I wasn't even playing basketball. I was just sitting there with my friends laughing.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know. I had never heard about this story.
Yeah.
But and then going into kind of the what makes a good coach and how I don't know how you get encouraged by the teams and trying to uplift the teams. That's one thing that's special about the Olympics. Every 2 years, 4 years that they come around is the unity that it not only brings together between just athletes, but just countries and in this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Did you watch the Olympics this year at all?
A little bit, not a whole lot though.
Okay. And I haven't had a TV here in the last couple of years, so I didn't watch them at all. But I just always remember the Olympics just being very, very exciting. One to watch, like the 100-meter dash, or, rooting for Team USA. And you see these in a lot of different sports, people from New York always being Yankees fans. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, it's that sense of pride, I think, that sports create not only in the players, but in these cities and in these fans. It's amazing how this works.
Yeah, I think the fans are a huge dynamic of sports. I feel like if there weren't fans, there would be a large part of sports taken away. Like, for example, in the lobby of our apartment complex, we have like a big kind of, I don't know, couch area. There's a shuffleboard thing. Is it still called shuffleboard when it's just a little table and there's salt and you throw the little puck things? Is that
Yeah, I
still
think that's the
shuffleboard? Okay.
shuffleboard. Yeah.
So there's one of those down there. There's a big couch. There's a big TV. And like when the Super Bowl's on or when the Olympics were on, people would kind of go to the lobby and gather and just kind of watch together. And I feel like that dynamic is just, I don't know, it just brings people together. And like you said, if you're in New York and you're a Yankees fan, if you're just watching the game with your friends and the Yankees hit like a walk-off home run or something, it builds a level of excitement as kind of not as if you were on the team, but it's like we did it, and you're just excited about the whole situation.
Well, you're right, and it's not only that, but if you're going into like a big city and you see someone else wearing your sporting goods or your team's logo, it's
Mm-hmm.
like you have that instant connection between you two, and you guys have never even met. It's like sports is these teams. There, it's like in a religion. It's like, oh, okay, well, we are on the same page on all these different things, whether it's politically or anything. They're not. It's just like we share the same love for this team, and that's awesome, and that means that we're friends.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's so easy to see the differences that everybody has. And sports are just kind of one aspect where it's like, this person likes the same team as me. So it's easier to see that we're not all that different. Because at the end of the day, we're not all that different. We have similarities with everybody and we're all super similar. But we go through life and kind of nitpick all the differences. And then we argue with each other about stuff like that. And I feel like sports is a way to kind of bring people together, and unity is really important. And I don't know, just being able to stand behind your team and connecting and bonding with people that also consider that their team. It's
And I think it doesn't only have to do with their team, but I think it has to do with when like records are broken. Like I
yeah, yeah,
think
yeah.
I talked to you last night. Shohei Otani went 50 for 50, first ever 50
51,
for 50.
51.
See, well, okay, is that what it is now? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So 51 home runs, 51 steals, never been done ever before. And it's just like people just recognize talent and amazingness, like
Mm-hmm.
whether it was Michael Jordan and even, LeBron. It's just like so many people, when you go to watch a dunk contest or whatever it is, like whether this guy was on your team or not, they just understand it and they respect it. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the respect for just those players, or like Tom Brady. You just have those once in a lifetime situations where it's just like whole people just sit back in awe, but they sit back in awe together. It's not like where they're usually like, Shohei sucks. Like, I don't care. It's just like,
Yeah.
well, oh, you mean he sucks, but he just did something that
Yeah.
nobody else has ever done?
Yeah.
No, nobody's saying that. They're supporting him. They're just enjoying the moment.
Yeah. And I feel like with Shohei, even a couple years ago when he first came into the MLB, him being a pitcher and one of the best hitters in the league, and not even just a pitcher, he's a good pitcher.
Yeah.
It's even if your favorite team is that team's rival, you can't really root against that guy because you see the greatness that it brings and you see how that affects the game. And now there's like more people that are pitchers but also good hitters, and you see how it improves the game and you just respect that at the end of the day. And then he goes breaking records like something that nobody's ever done in MLB history, and he's a great pitcher too, and how he's just probably one of the greatest players to ever play the game, period. And it's you have to respect that at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%. And I think what's been really cool, just especially in baseball right now, is it's not only how great some of these athletes are, but it's who they are as role models. Like Shohei Otani, Aaron Judge,
Mm-hmm.
like they just seem like they're really good people. Now, obviously, they could be hiding stuff, but we
Right.
don't see like the drugs or the crime that were associated so many times before, like where there's like really, really good athletes who are superstars, but
Mm-hmm.
they're also getting into a crap ton of trouble. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're just doing bad stuff.
Yeah, like Shohei's not in an OJ situation or anything like that. Shohei seems to be a very respectable person. I think that's just kind of coming from his culture too. It's important to show respect and honor, and I think he just kind of exemplifies that.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess, I go back to when I was watching baseball as a kid and I was enjoying it. That was when the home run records were essentially being broken. You had
Mm-hmm.
Mark
Oh
McGuire,
yeah.
Sammy Sosa, and that it seemed fun at the time. But then, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, you realize that these guys were all juicing and they were all
Mm-hmm.
just jacked up on steroids. And it's just like, well, that's, I don't know. That it was fun watching it,
Yeah.
and so it was just like it was amazing to see those amazing feats. But and that's something else. It's like cheating. It's very interesting when you see people cheating in sports. If you see people cheating in sports often or not, they're going to be cheating in other aspects of their life.
Yeah. I feel like that's just kind of how it is. Your personal life is going to be reflexive of how you are in sports, no matter what. And I feel like even with like lying in your personal life, even if you say like the smallest little white lie, it just keeps compounding and keeps compounding. And I think, like you were saying, like cheating in sports is kind of that same way.
Yes, it has to do with your value system, and sometimes I've wondered, do sports create that value system, or is it other things that have created that value system, and sports just is an expression of that, or
Mm.
brings more clarity to what that value system is. And I know in the future we want to get into, I think, a religious episode where we talk about religion. I think that will be really important in terms of establishing the value system, because realistically sports were created to have the rules for right and wrong. And like
Mm-hmm.
you were talking about, oh, if I don't tag this person and they ask, I'm going to say, yeah, I didn't tag him. It's that truth and that value in that, where some people, and again, that a lot of that has to do with, I think, your world belief is that being true to yourself and true to society and telling the truth is more important than winning.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some people out there where their world belief is that winning is more important than telling the truth. And so if they can get away with a certain amount of things and win, then that winning is the goal. And winning could be a nice short term temporary goal, but realistically, you got to look long term. And life, for us, for me, the truth, and being true to myself and honest is more important than small wins, right now in the present.
No, yeah, for sure. And kind of like we were saying earlier, like if you go on cheating but you're winning, at the end of the day, you don't feel good about it. Even if the other person doesn't even necessarily know that you're cheating, at the end of the day, you know it's cheating. And it just makes you feel like crap and it builds on your conscience and builds on your conscience. And at some point, it's going to break and some people are going to find out or whatnot. And it's going to be this big resolution and it's like everybody knows like oh he's cheating he was juicing the whole entire time, none of those records mean anything. And then it turns out that everybody's on the other side. Like nobody wants to support somebody that is taking performance enhancing drugs, but I guess some people will still defend it, like Barry Bonds home run record. People still say that's legit, but it's like, I mean, he's using steroids the entire time, so how does that count? You can't really count it if he's strictly breaking the rules to get this record broken. And like earlier, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, Judge broke the home run record. And people are saying, "Oh, not my home run record. Barry Bonds still holds the record." But it's like, you understand that he was caught cheating using
Yeah.
steroids, and I don't know, it's controversial, but I don't know, I don't get it.
My only concern with that is that during the early 2000s and up to 2010, I think there are a lot of people that were using performance enhancing drugs that may have beat records and
And didn't get
you know
caught.
gotten yeah that didn't get caught.
Yeah,
And it's not so much that they weren't cheating, it's that they didn't get caught.
yeah.
And that's where it's just like how do you deal with that?
It's kind of a slippery slope because it just kind of builds that confidence in the cheating that you try to get away with more stuff and more stuff. And then I don't know, like if that was somebody in your personal life, say Sammy Sosa was somebody you were super close with, and he was doing this and lying to the league, lying to all the fans, not being true to himself. It's like how does that leak over into his personal life? Maybe what else isn't true about him, or what else is he trying to hide from everybody?
Well, not only that, but like take it into the worst workplace, right?
Yeah.
So let's say you're owner of a business and you have an employee who just seems to have been doing like outstanding sales numbers. He's been going out and getting a lot of sales, but then come to find out he's been lying to half of these customers, telling them that this product would do this, this, and this, and it doesn't. And so now they're
Right.
all frustrated. It's like, well, and then there was this guy over here who maybe he was selling, let's say, health insurance or something like that, and he did all these good sales and he was selling this extra thing, but he never got caught because none of these people ever had to cash in on their insurance policy. So
Hmm.
while he was lying to them, he never got caught because they never had to use what it was he was selling.
Right. And at the end of the day, it's some business owners would support that type of behavior too. And at the end of the day, you know what's going on, but you're not saying anything about it, or maybe you don't know what's going on. And the whole customer base, the people that are affected by that, are going to spread that news. Bad news spreads so fast that eventually everybody's going to know about it, and it's going to affect people that want to sign with you or people that want to buy your product. People base a lot of, if they're going to buy something, I guess not a lot, but when it comes down to it, one of the things that determine if they buy your product or if they subscribe to your service or whatnot is they look at to see the person. And sometimes being a good person can sell a bad product, but a lot of the times too, being a terrible person can make somebody not be interested in your product at all. Even if it's like the greatest product ever, they're like, I don't want to support that type of person, so they don't buy it.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. I think a lot of that has to do with where you are in the world and the differences of um, perspectives and life's perspectives and communities. I think there's a much better term for it that I'm not thinking of right now in terms of diversity and stuff. But yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about cheating, right? And so,
Hmm.
like, okay, Barry Bonds, maybe his record should hold, and then you have like somebody like Pete Rose who did a lot of good in his while he was playing, and then as a coach, got caught betting, which really has nothing to do with him as a player and his inability or his ability. And it's like he's completely locked out of
The
the
Hall of
Hall of
Fame.
Fame,
Yeah.
lifetime ban and stuff like that. And it's just like, man, like how do you how
How can you
I
justify
mean,
that even after he did so much for the game?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like you're not catching everybody, and some of the times it's like they weren't trying to catch everybody. Like they had their special people
Yeah.
who they didn't almost seem to want to get caught. And it was like they were safeguarding their golden child and those types of things. So it's just you know, uh, but
Yeah.
yeah,
I feel like sometimes that can even be just grasp for power. Even in, I don't know if you've seen it lately, but it seems like the umpires in baseball are just very power hungry. And I think, I think a couple days ago, Jose Altuve, he plays for the Astros, if you know who that is, and I think he fouled a ball off of his ankle or something like that, or his foot or something maybe. And if you foul a ball off your foot and it goes fair, it's a foul ball still. It's a dead ball. But he fouled it off his foot. It went to third base. Third baseman threw him out. The umpire called him out. And maybe he went a little bit extreme on it, but Altuve literally took his shoe off, took his sock off, showed the umpire where it hit him, and he just ejected him from the game.
I saw that. Yeah,
Yeah. I feel like it's
no,
a lot of the time it's just they're just power hungry, and a lot of the time it just takes away from the love of the game, and it's just not fun to watch.
yeah, and I mean, today we're at such a day and age where there's so many camera replays and there's so much that can be shown to show what the truth is. It's like, why don't we try to use that the best that we possibly can?
Yeah.
But I think for me, as we wrap this up about the importance of sports in society, the one thing that has really stuck with me, I think, as I get older, Jake, is that you you have to have people in your corner who want to be part of a team who are going to be there to share your wins and losses. And I think that's what's important with sports is that when you guys share a win, that excitement, that love, that encouragement, there's power in that. But there's also power when you guys get the crap kicked out of you or
Yeah.
something happens, that there's those people that are sitting there holding on to you and you just experience that loss together. And I think as a society that's something that we've lost, that no matter what it is in life, you got to have a team, you got to have some type of support system to be able to have really what I consider an optimal life. You have to have somebody who loves to see you win, who encourages you win, who doesn't get frustrated or jealous when you're winning, but who is also sitting there and asking you how you're doing when you're going through a really difficult time in life, whether it's maybe losing a loved one or losing a job or stuff like that. Like I think as a society we've gotten so overwhelmed with social media in our own lives that we forget that there are other people out there hurting that need us, and to be a community and a team for those people, but to also be able to support and encourage those people and their wins when they happen, man. Like that's super important. And that's one thing about sports that I don't think a lot of people carry over into life. And we've become oblivious to this, and we've become so individualistic where we don't have this as much anymore.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And like you were saying, the wins and the losses. I think it's super important that people gather around you and celebrate your victories. But I think equally as important, it shows people's true colors when you're down or when it just feels like you're losing and losing and losing. To know that you have people on your side, it can do so much. Like we keep bringing up confidence, but it can do so much for your confidence just to know that people are there to support you as like a failsafe almost. or not even a failsafe, but just to let you know, like, it's going to be okay. This isn't the end of the world. You're going to lose. You're going to lose in life a lot. But just to know that people are behind you to support you, like, even after you, like, for example, if you get whooped, like 12 runs to zero, baseball game, in the dugout afterwards, coaches are just sitting there kind of like, well, we got smoked today, boys. Like, I don't really know what to say. And then I think leaders are formed in those moments. Like, people stand up in the losses and be like, okay, well, we lost, but what can we do better? And, or to just even not even go over that necessarily, but just to absorb the moment and lift everybody up, because I don't know, those moments are the one of the most important moments. Just losing, but still being able to be uplifted by somebody, or a leader just stands up and gives a speech and everybody listens. I feel like those are kind of the most important parts in learning to be a team.
Yeah, 100%. I would say that in my most difficult, deepest, darkest times when I've been through hell and just it hasn't been so much that I needed help with my self-confidence or anything. I just needed somebody who was by my side, who
Mm-hmm.
cared who I was as an individual, where I was at, and they accepted me, and they were just there not to say, "Oh, you should do this to change," or "You should do that," but they were just there to care and to listen and to offer support. Like I can only imagine we've had family members who have had one of their kids die or something like that, and those are times where maybe not a lot needs to be said, but just it's just giving them a hug
Mm-hmm.
or just sitting by their side, and they could be just sitting in silence for hours on end. It's just being there though. It's being there for your team. It's being there for your people.
Yeah.
And that's what's important in life. And sometimes we get too caught up or we think people don't need it, but we all need it because when we're all in that point and we're all sitting there in hell, that's what we want. We want someone to care. We want someone to reach out. Um, and that's just it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, like you were saying, like being in those worst moments, it's absolute worst part about it is that you're alone, or the feeling of being alone. And just for somebody to even sit there and not say anything, you just sit there and sit there. And at the end of the day, you know it's at least a little bit better than it would be, because this person cares enough to sit there in silence with you and not feel the need to get on your nerves, or maybe necessarily not even on your nerves, but they respect your opinion to sit in silence with you just so you can feel that they're there for you.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean, I love celebrating, especially events, birthdays. Or like, I remember Brittany's wedding. It was a really special time of us,
Mm-hmm.
our whole family being there together and just celebrating something special. But there's been times in my life where I've been in a deep, dark place here, like just crying, feeling alone. And as much as I enjoyed being around people in those times of wins and celebrations, I really, really wish that there would be people here in those deeper, darker times because those are the times that I feel like I really need people. And that's what I've taken upon myself that if I ever try to see that or I somehow feel something like that, to always try to reach out to people and try to ask because those are the times where people need it the most.
Yeah, I agree. Like last year, especially when dad passed, everybody, you just felt that sense of family and that sense of community when everybody kind of came together and just showed up for you. Like, we were all just hanging out at mom's house and just sitting there, whether we were playing board games or whether we weren't doing anything at all. Like, I remember the day that he died, that mom and I were going to the hospital, and I had to go. I was driving to Fort Wayne, and I really couldn't hold it that much longer. And we got to the hospital, and I had to go to the bathroom and take a dump. And by the time that happened, mom and I started walking to the elevator, and mom got a call on her phone from the hospital, and it was like, oh shit, dude, what is going on now? So by the time
Yeah.
we got up there, and mom and I walked in the room and he had passed. And that moment was one of the worst moments of my entire life, just walking in there and seeing that, and just you weren't alone, but it felt so much like it. And then I made that text in the group chat to everybody, and everybody was still on their way, and everybody showed up, and we all just kind of sat around dad and shared one last little speech and shared kind of jokes or whatnot. But just that sense of community and being there around him and supporting each other. And I don't know, it's one of the most important times just to be around each other is when you're losing a loved one, and being able to support each other. And one of one of the things that stuck out to me when we were sitting there around the bed after he had passed, and we were all about to say goodbye, and we still had the ability to take what had happened, make some jokes, and still laugh. Not at the fact, but just as a family, I feel like that's how we deal with stress and how we deal with loss. We just kind of try to pick each other up, and that's because that's exactly how dad was. And I feel it would have been a disservice to him to be there around him and feel like everybody just got kicked in the butt and like, oh my gosh, how are we going to move on with everything? And dad wouldn't want that. He would want us to be there and sharing our favorite stories about him, and maybe some personality traits about him that were funny, and we'd all have a good laugh, and we would all just kind of sit there and be there for each other, because that's kind of what all of what he was about, just very family oriented. And yeah, it was just one of the moments that stood out to me, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that that laughter, it wasn't so much just trying to get over it or trying to put it off to the side, but it was like that's what was special and that's what we were missing. That's what we miss about our dad the most. And I think I talked last week about those memories. It's that laughter and those enjoyable times that we miss the most. And so even though maybe it may seem like laughter and enjoyment, it's like, well, those are the times that we miss the most. And so those are the
Mm-hmm.
times that we go over the most, eh, are those memories.
Yeah.
And uh, no, it's that team, because you're 100% right, man. Like, I was flying in, so I didn't get there till 2 to 3 days later, and we got there, and you know I wouldn't have wanted to go through that by myself,
Yeah.
because I have went through tough times by myself, and it's it's not fun.
Oh no,
It's
it's the
it's
worst.
Yeah, it is the worst. And I think, you know, to those of you listening out here tonight, as we talk about the importance of sports in society, I think the biggest and most important thing that we'll take away from this podcast here this evening is how much team means to us on an individual level, the encouragement, the love, and the support that you get from your teammate, your people who support you. And I'm not talking about people who are just around or friends, but people who really care, and they reach out and they will be there with you through thick and thin, no matter what, there to have your back. And that's what a true team is really about.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So
So
on that
speaking
note,
of memories, though, last week we kind of went over that every week we wanted to share one memory that we had with dad. And I think since I went last week, I think it's only fair that this week you would share a memory of dad, not even necessarily on topic, but just any memory.
all right. So I guess the one big memory that comes to mind to me about my dad is that, like I said, my mom always worked at Savory. So we would get to go out to eat there for free. And one of the things, we went out to eat there one night, and I always just like to talk and share stories.
Yeah.
And I think one of the times that I saw my dad laugh the hardest was I was sharing a story about my delivery route earlier in the day at Kendrick's. And so I drove this big UPS truck, and sometimes it was hard to back up, and it was snowing outside, and so I had went and delivered a case of paper to the Sturgis Electric diesel plant, and I delivered it, and I backed up, and I heard something, and I got out, and I saw that I had totally destroyed their mailbox. I essentially, it was up by a 4x4, and I broke it in half, and so in order to really not get caught, all of these paper boxes, cartons of boxes, have this little plastic, essentially wrap around them. So I broke one of those off. I put these 4x4s back together because there was like a perfect split to where you could put it back.
Oh,
And then
okay.
and then I used that plastic wrap that was around the carton of paper, and I tied it just like a little bow tie. Which, if anybody went up there and pretty much touched it, or the
Yeah, it would
wind
have fell
blew,
over.
it was gonna bust it in half. But it was like, hey, ain't my fault. Now somebody else is gonna back into it or whatever, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be them that broke it, not me.
Yeah.
And so I told everybody about this story, and everybody was laughing. And so my dad was like, "Dad, you did not. You did not." I was like, "Dad, like it's 5 minutes away. Like, let's go look." And we drove over
Yeah.
there as a family, and we looked, and it was the little plastic wrap that went around the carton of paper was still there, and Dad was like laughing as hard as I'd ever seen him,
Yeah.
and that was
Yeah, that was the hardest I've ever seen him laugh.
so yeah.
Yeah.
But again, I think this all goes back to some of those memories and enjoyable times with Dad, where when we were all laughing and enjoying, maybe it was each other's failures
Mhm.
or just humor
Yeah.
as a family. And again, going back to the importance of having that team and that support group, and it relating to sports, I think, in our lives.
Yeah, I think so too.
So, on that note, I hope you guys appreciated this episode. I hope you took something from it. If you did, we'd love to hear your comments, your shares, your stories individually, just as we try to progress with this podcast and try to make it something special and just enjoy brother to brother talks like these.
Yeah, I know. I enjoy them a lot.
100%, man. Have a good night, guys.